coming for me, for me. Oh, he's coming for me, and he's coming, and Jesus is coming for me. Oh, he's coming for me. Oh, I shall see him descend in the sky, coming for me, for me. Oh, he's seeking for me, and he's pleading for me. Oh, he's calling for me, and he's coming for me. Oh, I shall see him descend in the sky, coming for me, for me. Oh, he's seeking for me, and he's pleading for me. Oh, he's calling for me, and he's coming for me. Oh, I shall see him descend in the sky, coming for me, for me. Page 321. Number 321. Page 321. Alas, and did my Savior bleed, and did my sovereign die? Would he devote that sacred head for such a worm as I? At the cross where I first saw the light, and the burdens of my heart rolled away. It was there by faith I received my sight, and now I am happy all the day. But drops of grief can ne'er repay the debt of love I owe. Here, Lord, I give myself away. 'Tis all that I can do. Oh, at the cross where I first saw the light, and the burdens of my heart rolled away. It was there by faith I received my sight, and now I am happy all the day. At the cross where I first saw the light, and the burdens of my heart rolled away. It was there by faith I received my sight, and now I am happy all the day. And at the cross where I first saw the light, and the burdens of my heart rolled away. It was there by faith I received my sight, and now I am happy all the day.
Scripture reading this morning is from the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 8, verses 1 to verse number 4. Deuteronomy, chapter 8, verses 1 to verse number 4. And I'll be reading from the King James Version of the Bible. And the scripture reads, "All the commandments which I command thee this day shall ye observe to do, that ye may live and multiply, and go in and possess the land which the Lord sware unto your fathers. And thou shalt remember all the way which the Lord thy God led thee these 40 years in the wilderness, to humble thee and to prove thee, to know what was in thine heart, whether thou wouldest keep his commandments or no. And he humbled thee and suffered thee to hunger, and fed thee with manna which thou knewest not, neither did thy fathers know, that he might make thee know that man doth not live by bread alone, but by every word that proceedeth out of the mouth of the Lord doth man live. Thy raiment waxed not old upon thee, neither did thy foot swell these 40 years." I've read Deuteronomy chapter 8, verses 1 to verse number 4. Let us be led in prayer.
Thank you, Lord. Oh, thank you, Lord. Oh, thank you. Oh, thank you, Lord. you to help me. Oh, Lord, I want you to help me. I want you to help me on my journey. Want you to help me on my way. Oh, Lord, I want you to help me. Crying, oh Lord, I want you to help me. Oh Lord, I want you to help me. I want you to help me on my journey. Want you to help me on my way. Oh Lord, I want you to help me. I said, while I'm singing, I want you to help me. While I'm singing, Lord, while I'm singing, I want you to help me. I want you to help me on my journey. Want you to help me on my way. Oh Lord, I want you to help me. Crying, oh Lord, I want you to help me. Oh Lord, I want you to help me. I want you to help me on my journey. Want you to help me on my way. Oh Lord, I want you to help me. Time is filled with a swift transition. Oh no, the earth and moon can stand. I want you to build your hopes on things eternal. Everybody ought to hold to God's unchanging hand. Everybody ought to hold on God's unchanging hand. Oh, to his hand. Hold on to my God's unchanging hand. Why don't you build your hopes on things eternal? Everybody ought to hold to God's unchanging hand. When the journey is completed, oh, give to God you have been true. I said, fair but bright, go home and glory, singing your enraptured soul will with you. Everybody ought to hold to his hand. Hold on to my God's unchanging hand. Everybody ought to hold to his hand. Hold on to my God's unchanging hand. Why don't you build your hopes on things eternal? Everybody ought to hold to God's unchanging hand. Number 361. This world is not my home. It'll be our invitation song. We'll do a verse of it this morning. Everybody ought to hold to his hand. Hold on to my God's unchanging hand. Everybody ought to hold to his hand. Hold on to my God's unchanging hand. Why don't you build your hopes on things eternal? Everybody ought to hold to God's unchanging hand. Everybody ought to sun changing hand. Why don't you build your hopes on things eternal? Everybody ought to hold to God's unchanging hand. Good morning, everyone. I pray that you've had a good week. We know that I keep saying it has been so hot that I need to remind myself why I know that I'm not going to hell. Okay, somebody didn't understand how it was on yesterday. So I guess that you must have air conditioning very well at home, and you didn't walk outside on yesterday. Now I know we need the sun, but I'm sure looking forward to some rain. So I'll remind you to keep my son in prayers because he is in South Carolina. And I finally got his address, but you do know if he's in South Carolina, that means he is in the way of whatever the, I almost said tornado. What's that thing called?
Hurricane.
Yeah, that thing is on the way. So, with it being, I'm going to let you know, I made a joke about it, with it being a Deut named, I'm not too much worried about this hurricane. Amen. Somebody ought to know what I'm talking about. Now, that being said, for the last couple of weeks, we have been dealing with a sermon series which I entitled, This is a Test. This is only a test. And basically it's talking about how our faith is being tested by God and then why we are tested. Now I mentioned on several occasions that there are three things that we all need to know and need to understand about our test, and that it's pretty much everybody in this building is either coming out of a test, heading toward a test, or you're in the midst of a test right now. But either way, at some point, we're going to be tested, and I always say, I've said this before, we got to be tested by life experiences. What I mean by that. Some of us are going to be tested when you're at work. I ain't got to say anymore. Some of us, talking with one young lady on yesterday, some of us have to know we're going to be tested while in school. We're talking about from high school, you know, college, that's cool, but we're talking about our younger generation has to deal with some stuff, and folks are going to test them. We're going to even be tested by people who we don't even know. Yesterday, somebody was riding with me, same young lady, we were on our way to somebody, and somebody didn't care that I was driving. I told you that everybody has this one thing that we have a problem with, and I've said it enough times. And yesterday, we just riding, I'm actually doing the speed limit, and this person in this vehicle just felt like I'm just going to pull over in front of him. And of course, I went to do just like this again. Wow. And I almost told you, but that same person did the same thing. Now, I was telling this young person, I said, now, the reason why I got tested is because I failed the last 2 times, in case y'all didn't know. Now, you know I don't like nobody pulling in front of me. I don't care who you are. But most of all, it's I realized why I got tested and where I got tested and who was with me that tested me. Because I couldn't show out like I wanted to. Here's what I mean. I could have easily just got in the left lane like they were turning. It made them feel like I was going to turn in the same lane. And I would have seen the look on their face and they would have turned and I just would have got back up. But the point was to say, sometimes we're going to be tested by people we don't even know in places that you would never be thought about. But notice how Satan, all he does is change who it is, but he keeps using the same test. Some of us will be tested by our own family. We're going to be tested by what we call, or who we consider our close friends, or by those people who even live in the same household that you have. Keep moving. Some of us are going to be tested, or you've been tested on your way to work, on your way to church, on your way to Bible study. You get tested while on the road. But most important, we have to always understand we're going to be tested when nobody's watching. I was telling somebody, it was like, well, if you're going to do something, I made a joke. I said, I'm going to do something. I ain't going to do it in front of everybody. Why don't I go out of town and do all the stuff I'm going to do? Even when I think someone's not watching, somebody sees you.
So be mindful that you're going to be tested everywhere. But when you think nobody's watching, just remember that God's watching. So as Christians, we need to understand that God will test us at different times, in different ways, and for different reasons. And we need to understand that that everyone does not go through the same test, but if someone goes through the same test, they may not respond the same way you did. Telling the young lady this morning, she didn't think that she did well in the test that she was going through. I was like, well, what did Jesus do? Jesus didn't show out. And then she made this joke about, she thought about punching him in the eye. But the fact that you didn't means you passed the test. It's nothing wrong with thinking that's something that you would do, but it's the action that gets you in trouble. So I was like, I'm proud of you, because you could have easily throat punched him, or did not mess around and give her wrong information. Like you could have waited till he went to sleep, jumped off the top of the dresser, put your ear, all that kind of stuff. It may make anything about what's wrong, but I won't let her know what she didn't do. So therefore, she passed the test. So what does that mean? I want to be clear and in your mind that you understand God is going to test your faith, whether you like it or not. That's the thing. Because many Christians fail to grasp that it's in their response of testing that will determine the next level of testing. If you keep failing a test, you're going to continue to repeat that test until you pass that test. What, the last 6 weeks I keep telling y'all, people putting out in front of me, I don't love it, and yesterday was the first day I passed. Honestly, I still think it's because some people was riding with me, but I still passed the test. So God is going to allow us to choose for ourselves whether or not we're going to fail the test or pass the test. But God is the reason why we're presented with the test. So in essence, a test is a challenge to measure your learning. What have you learned? We come to church every Sunday, read the Bible. You can quote scriptures, but you won't live the scriptures that you quote. But you're learning something. We're tested for us to grow. I love lifting weights. I don't get no bigger, but at least I'm stronger. But you'll never get stronger until you're tested with some weight. But most importantly, when we're tested, it develops our character. If you really want to know who somebody is, or what kind of person they really are, get them upset. Watch them speak. Some people speak vocabulary words you ain't heard in years. Or say, just watch them hit their thumb with a hammer. You'll find out what's in somebody when it comes to pain. So every time that we're tested, it's God wants to conform us into the image of his son. 2 Corinthians 3rd chapter verse number 18. 2 Corinthians 3rd chapter verse number 18. And if you keep this in mind, that every time I'm going through what I'm going through, God is molding me to who he wants me to be. But we all, with unveiled face, beholding as a mirror the glory of God, the glory of the Lord. The glory of the Lord is the gospel. And being transformed into the same image from glory to glory, just as the Spirit of the Lord. Matter of fact, let's make it easy. In order for a football player to become better, they got to go through some stuff. There's something called two-a-days. Some of y'all don't know anything about that, but in order for them to become strong, there's some things that they got to go through that may be tough. It's usually hot. It's usually miserable. But the whole point is to develop them and conform them into the position or the player that they want to be. So everything's not going to be good, but at the end of what you've been going through, you can, football brothers can look in the mirror. And you used to have, look like you've been drinking 6 packs, and now you have a 6-pack. That's a difference. So when you exercise, you may not see the results that you want. I always tell people, stay off the scales, because weight doesn't mean anything. How do you fit in your clothes now? You notice that used to be your jacket used to fit like this, and the buttons were screaming, talking about, help me. Now, you can wear clothes, so it's not about the weight, but you have to endure some things that you really didn't want to do for the sake of getting what you want. So as I said in the first sermon, when we're in school, we get a test. The test is for the student and not for the teacher. The teacher doesn't give you a test so they can know the answers. They give you the test so you'll know the answer. Which means, likewise, God ordains test for us, not for his sake, but rather for ours. So, the test, what did I write? On Deuteronomy 8, 1 through 4. God tests us to reveal our spiritual condition. God will try to use tests to expose who you really are. In other words, you know how folk can put on like they're the most holiest people in the world. And God needs to expose some folks. So what God will do is let a situation occurs and you'll find out who they really are. If you watch a person long enough, you'll find out who they are. If you listen to a person long enough, you'll find out who they are. So folk who ain't who they claim they be every time they come to church on Sunday, don't worry. God will show you who they are. But he's doing it for their sake so he can show them. Deuteronomy 8, chapter verse 1 through 4. Every commandment which I command to you today, you must carefully observe, that you may live and multiply. So God said, if you do what I tell you to do, you're going to live and you're going to multiply. And go in and possess the land which the Lord has for your fathers. I got something for you, but I need you to obey me. You shall remember the Lord your God that led you all the way these 40 years in the wilderness, to humble you and to test you, to know what's in your heart or what's in your mind, as to whether or not you're going to keep his commandments or not. He humbled you, allowed you to hunger, and fed you in manna which you did not know, nor did your fathers know, that he might make known to the man that man should not live by bread alone, but man lives by every word that proceeds out of the mouth of the Lord. Then he ends it by saying, your garments did not wear out on you, nor did your foot swell these 40 years. So with this text, we're staying still with the theme of this is a test. We're going to simply call this is a test to remember. This is a test to remember. In order to get where we're going, I need you to understand that the book of Deuteronomy, which we're in, we know it's the 5th book. We already know that part. But what it means determines where we're going. The book Deuteronomy simply means a repetition of instructions.
Right.
A repetition of instructions. I'm sure by the next Sunday school lesson, we'll get the next one. That's what book we'll be on next, because now we're on Exodus. Y'all be listening to good Sunday school. But the book is called or defined as repetition of instructions, which means Deuteronomy is basically reiterating the laws given by God to the Israelites in the book of Exodus, Leviticus, and Numbers, the books before that. So in Deuteronomy, Moses reiterates the history of Israel. You know, he reiterates the 10 Commandments. And he does this to remind them of what God expects for them. So me preaching the gospel, me preaching every week is to remind you of what God expects from you. Don't come here thinking you're going to get some feel good when you should feel good after hearing, but I need to remind you of what God expects of you.
Man.
So if we understand that the main theme of the book of Deuteronomy comes down to impart, matter of fact, to depart into them what he wants them to know. And this is the main theme, or we'll say throughout the book of Deuteronomy. Deuteronomy 4, verse number 9. Deuteronomy 4, verse number 9 simply says, only take heed to yourself and diligently keep yourself, lest you forget the things that your eyes have seen, lest they depart from your heart all the days of your life, and teach them to your children and your grandchildren. So here's what he's telling them. Remember not to forget what you've seen. Now remember, he's talking to some folk who just got delivered. And don't forget to remember who you belong to. That ought to sound familiar to some of us too.
Man.
Remember to remember what God has already done for you. And then don't forget to remember to keep reminding yourself where God has brought you from. One or two of y'all should understand that from where you used to be to where you are now. We'll get that a little bit later. So in other words, you better remember not what God can do for you, but rather what God has already done for you.
Yes.
And then he says, don't neglect to tell your children about what God has done for you.
Man.
That's why we have such a generation of people, or little young folk, that don't know who God is, because we have yet to tell them who God is. Here's what I mean. We have given our kids so much that they feel entitled versus thankful for what they've been given.
Man.
My son ain't here, so I can talk about it. That day he said, Dad, when I turn 16, I want to Dodge. Dodge what? Whatever that Dodge car is. Something he saw on Humblebee or some robot movie thing, and I was like, okay. Now my thing is, he was actually expecting me to buy him something better than what I'm driving myself. Now I understand that because that's what other people are doing. But here's the thing about sometimes us giving our children everything and not letting them know the struggle that we had to go through. There's nothing wrong with taking our kids and doing things for them. But when I tell my kids, hey, we're going all the way down into Adventureland, I need to let you know, this is how much it is. Oh, by the way, son, you talking about eating that? But we're going to eat before we go. You get hungry, we're going to get around, we're going to go off, then go to the vehicle, eat. Brother, I know how much you eat. There were some things that our children don't know the struggle. Sometimes you got to say, hey, I need you to do me a favor. I want you to go by and drop off the light bill for me. What does that mean? Don't put it in an envelope. Here's a check. Now, you can do it online. Hand it to them. I need you to drop it off for me. You know what the child going to do. They just going to drop it off. They're going to look at it. Daddy, is this much? Yeah, if you keep messing with the electricity bill for that code, I know, boy, you better get some fans. But he understood after a while, but son, now that you're old enough, it's time for you to help.
Okay.
Pay that light bill. Guess what happened? Light bill's been down. Okay, so sometimes we got to let our children know that, yeah, things are good, but they need to know the struggle. Let me show you how good God is, that he helps me take care of this, as well as taking care of you as well. So, matter of fact, that's a whole bunch of preaching in that. But anyway, moving on to the meat of the lesson. The question at hand is, where can we find where Moses addresses, talking about folks going hungry, being fed with manna, clothes not wearing out and feet not swelling. I was like, okay, let's go there. Real simple. Exodus 16 chapter. Exodus 16 chapter. I think that's the second book right after Genesis. I'm sure it is because I just wrote it, second book. So, verses 1 through 7. I'm going to read this for you, and it's going to make sense when we get there. There it is. And they, talking about the Israelites, journeyed from Elim, and all the congregation of Israel came to the wilderness of Sin. This is not talking about sin, but the name of sin, just the name of a town, which is between Elim and Sinai. And on the 15th day of the second month, they departed from the land of Egypt. Then the whole congregation of Israel, children of Israel, complained against Moses and Aaron while in the wilderness. And the children of Israel said to them, Moses and Aaron, oh, that we had died by the hand of the Lord in the land of Egypt, when we sat by the pots of meat, and when we were ate bread to the full. For you have brought us out into this wilderness to kill this whole assembly, with hunger. Verse number 4. Then the Lord said to Moses, behold, I will rain bread from heaven for you. And the people shall go out and gather a certain quota every day, that I may test them. Okay, we got to figure out what do you mean by testing them doing this. Whether they will walk in my law or not. And it shall come on the 6th day that they shall prepare what they bring in, and there shall be twice as much that they gather daily. So they get a certain amount on Monday through Thursday. On Friday, he wants them to, Sunday through Thursday, and on Friday he wants them to get a double portion, is what he said. Then Moses and Aaron said to all the children of Israel, at evening you shall know that the Lord has brought you out of the land of Egypt. And in the morning you shall see the glory of the Lord, for he hears your complaints against the Lord. But what we are, that you complain against us. What does that mean? Sometimes folk will blame other folk for the problem that they in. When in essence they need to be talking to God about what they're going through, instead of complaining to somebody else. Blaming somebody else what they're doing. So in verse number 4 we can see, the Bible says, God humbled and tested the Israel's faith. But the question is, what was the actual test of faith that God was administering? So, before we can answer that question, to get really into the lesson, there's something that occurred prior to them complaining about not having any food that leads up to this point. Chapter 15, one chapter over, verses 22 through 27. You know, I'm not going to read all that. You can read on your leisure time. But it says, we find Moses bringing the Israelites from the Red Sea. He had just closed the Red Sea on Pharaoh and the king, and now they're on the other side of the Red Sea. Now, as they're walking in the wilderness, stay with me now, 3 days, they couldn't find water to drink. And when they finally found some water, they couldn't drink it because they found out it was bitter. So what did they do when they got to a place where the water was bitter? They started being bitter. It'll make sense in a minute. They started whining and complaining and grumbling against Moses. In verse number 24 is, what we gonna drink? Here's the thing. They just saw the Red Sea open up, walk on dry land. Matter of fact, let's go back before that. As they were coming out of Egypt, mind you, remember it was so hot, there was a cloud that kept them from being hot. And then because it was dark, they had a light guiding them in the dark. So if I just had a cover for me in the hot sun and a light guiding me at night, I get to a sea, find out I'm getting ready to kill, open up, the sea opens up, I walk on dry land, get on the other side. And now I'm complaining, where the water at? Okay, it'll make sense. Verse number 25, well, Moses says, it says, Moses cried out to God, and he showed him a tree, and instructed him to throw it in the water, and the water became sweet. The Bible says in the latter part of verse number 25, there he made a statute and an ordinance with them, and there he tested them. So now God has tested them with the coming water. So we're talking about water now. Next we're going to be talking about food. Does that sound familiar? Two things that are necessary for us to live, right? Water and food.
Yes.
But God is testing them with water. Complaining about where's the water at? But he just provided for you everything you needed just before. So he tested them, which means God was testing their faith in him as to whether or not they trusted him to provide for what they needed. That's the whole thing. God tested them to say, I need you to understand, I'm going to provide what you need. Verse number 26, God essentially is telling the Israelites that their test is if you listen to me, you obey me, and you're faithful to me, I will continue to provide for you, continue to preserve you, and continue to protect you. This is all he's talking about. You got to read the whole thing. In verse number 26, he's talking 26 to 27. I got you. I got you. You just do what I tell you to do. I got you. Y'all follow that, right? So let's get back to chapter 16. Verses 1 through 3. After we see that they complain about lack of water, the Israelites are now complaining about we ain't got no food. And then again, they suggest that Moses and Aaron is the reason why we out here starving. Once again, they had the nerve to say, as I said in chapter 14, verse 11 and 12, they said it was better, it'd been better if I had if we were back in Egypt as slaves and we could have just died. It'd have been better if we had been back in Egypt. Now, there's something I need to say something about that. I'll hold it. Verse number 3. And the children of Israel said to him, oh, would we had died in the hand of the Lord in Egypt, when we sat by the pots of meat, when we had ate bread to the full, for you have brought us into this wilderness to kill the whole assembly with hunger. Remember, they were slaves in Egypt, right?
Yes.
Now, we know what slavery is like, because all we got to do, we didn't got to read that. God has showed us slavery not too many years ago. I keep forgetting. It ain't been too long since people started saying we can vote now. You can still see now it's still an issue for us being the color that we are. But just know that it wasn't too many years ago that slavery was here. So think about it. They were slaves. And if you've been here this morning, you'll find out they had taskmasters.
Yes.
Which means they were putting it on them and telling you better do it. And if you ain't doing it, I'm going to keep beating you till you do it.
Right.
Now, here's the thing about slaves. When they said we had full of food, we had meat, and we had bread to the full. Slaves didn't have no meat back then. Like they were going to eat, till their belly got full. How many slave movies have you seen where folk that ate till their belly got full? So the thing is, there's nowhere in the world, if they had meat, they got a little bit of meat, but they said they were eating till they got full. If they had taskmasters, we know that's untrue. Matter of fact, if you look at it, which I'm going to address now, it seems like what we may have done, or what they were doing, was they were reminiscing of what people like to call the good old days. Y'all remember how we've said the good old days? Okay. But according to Exodus 1st chapter verses 8 through 22, 1st chapter verses 8 through 22, they were being oppressed and mistreated by Pharaoh. But they would rather go back to what they were eating when they were getting beat down. Exodus 2nd chapter, 23 through 25, we find out they done got beat down. We find that from chapter 1. Now they done cried out to God about their situation and condition under the slavery of Egypt. But now they're reminiscing about what they call the good old days. So, why Moses told them in the book of Deuteronomy, which is the theme of it, you need to remember where God has brought you from. Amen. You talking about these are good old days. The Israelites had apparently forgotten that the good old days wasn't as good as they thought they were. So now they having a little bit of hunger, and they talking about we had it better. We was better. I'm sorry. I just can't be, no. I can't see myself enjoying a beating down.
All right.
Every day.
All right.
Versus freedom. Okay, so we just want to make sure. So, to me, that's like someone getting you out of a dangerous and abusive relationship. Think about what we had now. This person's putting it on you every day. But you keep talking about how good you had it when you was with him or her. Because y'all know there's some women who put some dangles on men's head. I don't care if y'all know. But somebody helped you get out of the abusive relationship.
Yes.
But things ain't the way you used to have it. So you eating what you can eat. Buying sausage. First back then you had Polish sausage.
Okay.
But you start reminiscing on how good you had it. But did you really have it that good? So the problem that we can see with the Israelites is that they were physically free, but still mental slaves. Man, think about that. Yeah. Physically free, but in their mind, they were still slaves. Amen. And honestly, that's the same problem we still have with Christians today. They want to reminisce how good they used to do this and how they used to do that. Because back in the day, I was balling. I know I was balling.
Amen.
But now I'm balling on a budget. But the thing is, I had everything I wanted when I wanted it. I had this and I had that. But looking back now, I realized that I was still a slave. Amen. But I wasn't under the slave rule of Egypt, but I was under the slave rule of the devil.
All right.
And my soul was in danger of going to hell. So I couldn't continue to enjoy what I was doing because they was like, I got you. Good. Enjoy as much as possible. But Satan, I don't care if you don't say, Satan doesn't bless you, but Satan will give you what you need when you want it if it's going to keep you out of the kingdom. So he has no problem letting you get this and letting you get that because he wants to keep you out of the kingdom. So now that I have been freed, or that you've been freed from the bondage of sin, and the devil doesn't rule my life anymore, what happens is when I don't get what I used to get, and I don't have what I used to have, yes. What happens is I look back at what I used to have and what I have today, and guess what I start doing? Okay. Complaining. Okay. And talking about how good I used to have it. This is what the Israelites were doing. God has freed you from some mess, but you'd rather come think about what you don't have versus what you did have, and then you start complaining about what you do have. I need to remind you that I want you to remember what God has brought you out of. And don't forget to look back where God has brought you from. That's all. The problem with some of us now, we're so today oriented that we forget about how we used to have it. I know there was a time that we used to have this little gas stove. You know that one that's sitting on the wall about this big, and it's right there, and it only like 2 rooms had it. So you close certain doors so everybody can have heat. And now we have central heat. You complain when that one vent don't blow like it used to. But there was a time that you couldn't even afford to have central air. My central air was the window raised up with a box fan. It centrally blowed in the room as whatever direction I had. And now we have, obviously why we sweat so much, is because we have the comforts of air conditioning. Let's go back into the old days when there wasn't no air conditioning. Everybody had that, that funeral fan. Windows was up, bees was flying in, and everything else is, and you sitting there, and the sisters with their hot hat on, long dress, turtleneck, you're like, oh, no wonder you hot. And all the preacher wanted was a glass of ice water. You could see the sweat coming off of it. And he'd take a sip, and he'd preach for another 6 hours. Anyway, I remember. So y'all follow what I'm saying is, we need to stop reminiscing or being complaining about what we don't have, but you need to remember where God has brought you from. Which means I'm getting into the conclusion of the lesson, so that means time to move on. So back to the lesson. We have read how the Israelites began to complain, but again, this time they complained that they ain't got enough food to eat. So verses 4 through 7, behold, I will rain for bread from heaven, and the people shall go out and gather a certain quota each day. People are going to go out and get a certain amount every day, that I may test them, whether they will walk in my laws or not. I'm checking to see if you're going to do what I told you to do. So we get down for, he says, verse number 17, for I hear the complaints against the Lord, but what we are that you complain against us. So the test of faith for the Israelites was, are you going to do what I told you to do? Verses 14 through 21. The Bible tells us that it was God's instructions on how much to get for the manna, and what not to do with the manna that he provided for them. This is the amount you're supposed to get. And then don't do this when it comes to the manna. Read 14 through 21. I'm not going to tell you those stories. It'll spoil everything. Verses 16 through 19. This is the thing that the Lord has commanded. Let every man gather according to each one's need. Get the manna, but get what you need. 1 omer for each person. It doesn't matter how big the omer is. People get out technical. Don't worry about it. It's an omer. It's small. It's a small amount. For it's like a TV dinner. That's what it means for each person. According to the number of persons. So how many people in the house, that's what you get. Let every man take for those who are in his tent. Then the children of Israel did so and gathered some more. And some less. Some got a whole bunch, some got less. Because it depends on the family. Here it goes. So when they measured it by omers, he who gathered much had nothing left over after eating, and he who gathered little had no lack. Every man gathered according to each one's need, and Moses says, let no one leave any of it till the morning. Don't have no leftovers. That's what he said. Watch this. So the test of faith was to see if they were going to obey God's command. Verses 20 through 21. There were some people, after him giving the instruction, they still disobeyed. You know there's some folks that ain't going to do what you tell them to do? So God told them what to do. But some people disobeyed, and they hoarded some extra. He just said, don't eat. Don't leave no food. Eat it all. But they hoarded it, and guess what they found out the next day? That extra manna in the morning would, what's that word? Disintegrate. Worms would get into it. Because God said, only get the amount that you're supposed to get. What does that mean? God's telling you what he wants you to do. And when you go over it, you're being disobedient. So what do you think about when this from this alone, just going to drop this off, he done told you what he wanted in his worship. But folks still want to add to what they want to add to it. It don't mean that, like basically saying the worms that got hold to it. But Moses found out that some of these folk who disobeyed God. And Moses got angry about it. Here's my question. It says some folk hoarded over at night. Some people got more than they're supposed to get. So my question is, how did Moses find out that some folk got more than what they're supposed to get and it withered away in the morning? How did Moses find out? Somebody told him. Why did somebody tell him? Because somebody complained. Y'all see what I'm saying? So in other words, gossip is what happened. even though it's the truth, the intent behind why you say it makes it gossip. Moses found out that folk was doing extra because somebody done told him. If it had been me, I'd have found out what told them they behind. Why you tell Moses if my Moses is upset? So then read verse number 27. That even though God had given them all the same instructions on what to do every day, especially on Friday, I mean getting double, when the Sabbath day came, some folk, even though they got double, went out looking for more manna to eat. You got double already because you got it Friday. But Saturday morning you got up and you still went looking, even though God told you, don't go out on the second day. And here's the funny part. When you read verse 27, when they didn't find manna, guess what they did? They complained. God already said, don't expect nothing on this day, but you go out and look for it, and then you complain that it ain't there. But God has provided you for everything you need. You notice how folks complain about stuff that they want, and they don't even need it?
Right.
Let me help you out. If I want another fan, I like a fan with remote control. I got 3, 4, 5 fans already. Do I really need more remote control? No. But every time I look at that price, I sure remind myself, I guess I won't be getting one. And even when it gets cold, Walmart still won't lower the price. Because you know get lower in Alabama, guess what? It don't ever get cold enough not to need a fan. But the thing is, sometimes we want stuff and we don't even need it. Then we get complained. I'm like, how come it still costs as much? It's November. Sir, this is how much it costs. So I can talk to get mad at the Walmart man, get mad at the fan man, get mad at the manufacturer. Either I'm going to pay the price or shut up. Complaining doesn't do anything. So that was the attitude. But my question is, if the people went out and got more on the seventh day, got more than they're supposed to get, is that greed? Is that what the attitude was? Was it greed? So the question is, oh, I think it's not. Let me say it that way. That's the first thing I thought. Until I started reading a bit more, found out it's probably not greed. What I see the issue was they had a lack of trust and faith in God. Why would you go out looking on a day after you're supposed to have double on a day you're not supposed to be looking? Because you didn't trust that there was going to be enough manna. You didn't trust that God was going to give you enough food. They didn't trust that God was going to give them what they needed on a daily basis. That's why they call themselves a horde more. Matter of fact, that's like when you see when we have our picnics and you see folks with 5, 6, 7 plates, to-go plates. I know y'all ain't gonna say nothing. You ain't gotta say amen. I say it for you. They got one plate for meat, one plate for rice, and another plate, but they got some beans over here. Then they got another plate for vegetables, then they got a plate for the bread to put on top. And then they pat it over to let me see it with 3, 4 sodas for each day. Come on now. It's not that you don't, because the thing is, you don't need all that food. But the thing is, it's like you forget God's going to supply you for what you need. Do you really need to have all that? And most of them, honestly, most people I know good and well don't eat it all. Me? Oh yeah, I eat all mine. It may take me 3 days, but I'm going to eat all mine. So my thing is, I don't even let them put them like it's too much. And if you anybody to see me, I'm like, I'm not going to eat all that. Can you take some of it off? Because I know my portion. God's got me. So we have to be mindful that when God gives you what you have in front of you, He's telling you this is what you need. Stop always trying to get more. Matter of fact, let's do it better. If God supplies you with a Hyundai, but you want that BMW, it's still a car. Won't it get you from point A to point B? Amen. So a 2019 Hyundai, depends on what you get, versus a Lexus. Big price, big money, car note, every month. And because it's even more foreign, you got higher insurance. Be under the age of 30. Now your insurance is it. My point is, God's giving you what you need. He's telling you, don't take this route. Go to the Honda dealer. Okay. You don't really have to go all the way to Montgomery to go get a Mercedes. I'm sorry, I forgot we got the folks who know what that means. A Mercedes. Nothing wrong with getting it, but I can tell you can get it right there. So we find that these people, God tested them for the need of water, need for food, because they didn't understand that He said, I got you. So that last part we talked about, now the clothes didn't wear out, nor did their foot swell. So you know, I was like, what does that mean? the clothes didn't wear out and foot didn't swell. Well, simply means the text is letting us know that while they were on their journey in the wilderness, God not only provided water for them, basic need, food for them, basic need, but they never had to buy or make new clothes. Think about this. 40 years. So somebody said, what about the kids that grow? Apparently the clothes grew too. Sometimes folk get all caught up in the mix. You miss the point. He's saying, y'all ain't got to go get nothing. I got you.
Yeah.
And when he says about their feet, he's saying, y'all walked for 40 some odd years. At no time did your feet get injured, or did you need new shoes? Oh, somebody missed that. There was a time that we only had 2 pairs of shoes. Play shoes, and somebody knows, Sunday shoes. Matter of fact, how many ladies used to have that white pair of shoes that scuffed the first time you wore them? Y'all know what I'm talking about. But you better not wear them any other day. I think every poor child had to wear a white dress, white shoes, white bonnet, white bow, and hopefully you had white teeth if you had some at that time, so you could look all beautiful in white. And time you did it, you know what happened? You look like somebody messed up. You look like Chick-fil-A chicken in the morning, and you look like Popeye chicken in the afternoon. Hair's all messed up, shoes all scuffed. That's low down. But I'm saying is, God is saying, I supplied you the whole time. So in other words, God is saying, they never actually lacked anything that they needed because God provided them with necessities of life. But yet, these are the same folk that murmured and complained about what they didn't have. They saw the miracles at the plagues. These are the same people that saw what the miracles he performed before the Red Sea, after the Red Sea. The problem is, these folks were still afraid, which turned into murmuring and grumbling and complaining because they were afraid that God really wasn't going to provide for them. That's why people complain. It's because you're not sure what's going to happen, so you start complaining. So in essence, I like to say these are people that have spiritual amnesia. It's a disease. Spiritual amnesia is a disease, which means, this is the medical field in it, so I'm going to throw that in there. It's like saying, you forget how God has delivered you. You forget how you were on the road, and you remember those days that you were drinking from Fort Hood, Texas, and you drank all the way to Dallas. You don't remember how you got there, but you went there to a late night establishment. That night, folk were shooting, and you heard a bullet swing, but you didn't bother you. And some kind of way, between that time and your drinking, you got all the way back to Fort Hood, Texas again, but you woke up in the bed, but you don't remember how you got there. Y'all see how God will still protect the food too? My thing is, then there was times that you know somebody was out to do something to you, but God still protected you. In other words, I ain't got to worry about my enemies, because he may turn my enemies into my footstool, and then use my enemies to prepare a table for me, and then bless me with what they had. He provided for them, and not only that, he preserved them the whole time they were in the wilderness. He gave them deliverance from their old life. He gave them protection and provision. So what is the antidote? There's no real such thing as antidote to amnesia. It's something, the only thing you can help a person with amnesia is you have to keep, well, let's just keep it spiritual amnesia. Because somebody say he done false, whatever it is. The antidote for the disease of spiritual amnesia is to go back and review what God has already done for you. Just go back. You didn't even got to look in the Bible. Stop, take a mental note, and just think, okay, let me back up each year. Look where God has brought me from. Some of us can look back when we didn't have a ride. We had nothing, but we got something to ride in now. And I always think about his truck. How old is that truck? Your truck, the black one that everybody knows when you go.
About 15.
It's probably older than that, but it's a good way. But you know, there was a time when he probably couldn't afford nothing but one thing. That was a time when we only had one vehicle for everybody. Now we got 2 and 3 vehicles. There was a time when you only lived in 2 bedrooms. Now you got 3 bedrooms and a guest room too. Moving right along. My point is, there were times that we didn't have anything, and we forget where God has brought us from. because we have spiritual amnesia. So what do? Is we conclude this lesson. That simply means I want you to understand that sometimes God tests your faith in Him when times are hard. Well, actually, He causes tests to occur when you have nothing and it depends on the necessities of life. Stay with me. I want you to hear this part. That means that God will use your season of needing something to help you see that you need Him every day. Amen. He let them go without water so He can say, the only way you're going to get water is because I have to do something. He let them say, okay, the only way you're going to get something to eat, I got to do something. Matter of fact, we completely tired of this manna. Okay, I'm going to give you some meat, but I'm going to make you choke on it. It's going to come out your nose. So y'all better read that part, but it's saying is people complain. So He said, I'm going to use or put you in a position of nothingness so you can understand that you need me every day. So the test of faith for the Israelites and for us today is to trust and rely on God every day and be grateful for what He's already done instead of trying to say, Lord, I want this and Lord, I want that. Be happy that He's already done what He's done. Because when you're not happy, well, matter of fact, happiness is a condition. When you're not thankful, when you're not grateful, when you don't trust in God, His provision, His protection, and how He's preserved you, you become just like the Israelites. And you murmur and you complain about everything. But here's something about it is you complain about everything and everybody. So if you ever meet a Christian that complains about everything, they're telling you they're ungrateful. You have complained, the church did, and they got their hair on too high. It's cold in here. You have been blessed by with a blanket. And I always say the best thing to do is sit up close. You know it's freezing in the back. It's Sister May, she know how. But when she stayed cold in the middle of the summer. But it's to say is, there was a time, matter of fact, y'all remember when the air conditioner shut off that time? Yeah. We was in here like Hebrew slaves, talking about letting our people go because it was so hot. I think that's the only time I ever preached a 20-minute sermon. Because it was that hot. But what I'm saying is be mindful that when you're ungrateful, you complain. People that are grateful don't complain. Because you have no reason to complain because you can look back and say, you know what, look what I got. So in other words, God will, in order to let us see where we are in our faith with God, God will let us go without something that we need. Now the thing is, it's something that we need, but here's the trick. It's something that you can't get on your own power. There's no hookup you can get. There's nobody you can call. There's nothing that you can do. Every door is closed. There's no way you can get it. So God will let you be without. So He can tell you, depend on me to get what you need. That's all He's trying to do. So when those people went without water for 3 days, without food for 3 days, He's like, I got you. But since you don't want to act right, I'm going to make you wait. And sometimes waiting is the best thing in the world. So when we go through our God-ordained test, He revealed the results of the test of the disease of spiritual amnesia that we have. So in other words, to treat the disease, remember not to forget what you've read, what you've seen, and what you heard God do. You've heard testimonies of people that's like, that's a good God. Don't forget to remember who you belong to. You belong to the King. You belong to God. Remember what God has already done for you in your life, and don't forget to remember to keep reminding yourself what God has brought you from. Amen. What do I mean by that? God told them in Deuteronomy 15:15, you shall remember that you were a slave in the land of Egypt, and the Lord God redeemed you. If nothing else, He's trying to say, y'all ought to remember, the one thing you ought to remember is you've been redeemed. And that's the same thing we ought to remember. We have been redeemed. And ever since we've been redeemed, God has protected you, God has preserved you, and God has provided for you. Yeah, that's some stuff that may have happened that we did on our own, but God still said, I got you. So you ought to be grateful every day. Matter of fact, every time you open your eyes in the morning and see another day, you ought to be grateful. And start praising then instead of waiting the sun to I like to thank the Lord. You should have thanked Him when you woke up that morning. Amen. I need you to know that sometimes, and I'll say this with the same thing with the spirit of what we've just been saying. Sometimes God will let you marinate and soak in your situation and condition. Y'all know what marinating is, right? Please tell me you do. So soak in it means, real marinade means there's an acidicness. It has to get in there. It has to get into the meat. And what it does with the meat is it tenderizes. I'm going to have to get Teddy Bear to make the stuff because he'd be tenderized. I don't know what he do with it, but God will let you soak in your situation for a little while. So while he's doing it, he's seasoning you. Y'all know the story. Y'all know barbecue is. So now before you can get the final product of being something being marinated and something being seasoned, what does it have to go through before it gets to your table? It's got to go through some fire.
That's right.
That's the thing. God has got to put you in some fire to warm you up, to cook you up real good and get you seasoned. So when you go through your season, know that you're being seasoned so God can use you for someone else's season. So we have to stop complaining about what we do not have on this side of life and start appreciating what we do have. What do I mean by that? You may have got out of bed this morning with aches and pains. I'm talking about me. But not only did you get out of bed this morning, you woke up in your right mind.
Amen.
Think about that. And matter of fact, some of us took a breath of fresh air that somebody took that last one last night.
Yeah.
But we wake up complaining. You may look in the refrigerator and you don't see what you have. You want some filet mignon for those big folks. But all you got in the refrigerator is cube steak.
All right.
But what you won't do is go hungry. You want name brand soda. But God got your water.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay, somebody know what I'm talking about. So the light bill, the water bill, and the car bill, and then the house notes due. All this stuff is new. And here's the funny part when I thought about that this morning. Light bill due, because it is. Saw the bill when it came in. Water bills due. Is that a reason why you can only use this much water and the water bill's still high?
Okay.
All these other people, anyway, water bills due. Yeah, car notes due. Just paid the house note, so we're good there. So, but here's the thing. All this stuff is due, but this morning, I clicked the lights were still on. When I went to take a shower, the water's still running.
Amen.
When I went to the car this morning, the car was still there.
Amen.
So sometimes we have to stop complaining about what we don't have and be appreciative of what we got right now. If they turn the water off tomorrow, which you know they won't because it's a holiday, you got till Easter Tuesday. Okay, y'all see what I'm saying? So don't worry. Stop complaining about what you don't have. God will provide for you, but be gracious of what you do have. You may not have a new suit or new dress, but that old suit, that old dress from 10 years ago still fit. And if it don't fit, just don't button up the top.
All right.
Because I wore a suit last week that I have literally not worn in 20-something years. It was so old, I went and took it to the dry cleaning, and they said, this is a nice suit, it's been around for a while. I'm like, oh, now she's telling me my suit is old. But the thing is, I don't have to buy anything. He's provided me in the closet. Instead of going to all this, oh, I got what you need already. You may not like the job that you're working at, but here's the blessing. You still got a job. You may hate them chickens. Matter of fact, every time I don't roll down 636 because I don't even like the smell of them chickens.
Amen.
But if I had to work there, it smelled good to me because God has blessed you with something.
That's right.
Yeah.
And last but not least, because I'm going in this succession, because next week we're going to deal with money and lack thereof, testing it, or money when you have a whole bunch. But let's say you're living from paycheck to paycheck. Here's the beauty of it. God is still making sure that you have everything that you need. Well, I can't go and get Seagram's, what's that thing? Canada Dry. What's the Canada Dry? Seagram's. Thank you. Because I wanted at one point some ginger ale, and it was like, and I remember thinking, I ain't got no money to get this. You better drink some water.
All right.
But
Amen.
living from paycheck to paycheck, that's when I was to eat more, and I'd extended myself more than I should have. But my children never went hungry. They still had a roof over their head. Lights was on. Everything that I needed, God said, I got you. Just depend on me. So if you truly trust in God, you ought to be able to shout at the top of your lungs, Lord, if you don't do anything else for me, you've done enough already. Somebody been there before. So my thing is, if you have spiritual amnesia, you don't forget what God has done for you, and continue to have a grumbling and complaining attitude, God's going to send you a test to remember. If you're here and you're not a child of God, I need you to know that you're in a state of remembrance. You ought to remember that God allowed you to see the day so you can get it right with him.
Thank
You ought to remember the things that you've been through, that you can say, you know what, it had to be God to save me from the foolishness that I was in.
Yes.
You're here today.
Amen.
You were allowed to see a day that you've never seen before, but you're here today. So God is saying, I need you to remember that my son has died for everybody's sins.
Yes.
He has done something before you were ever even born. Matter of fact, before God ever said, let there be light, my son had already made a promise. I'm going to do this for everybody. So Jesus came on this earth, walked on this earth, died for our sins, was buried, and rose again the third day according to the scriptures. He's done everything else and all that you need.
Yes.
So if you believe that, you're here. That's the reason why you're here. That's the gospel. You believe the gospel, repent of your sins, confess that Jesus Christ is the Son of God, and again, buried in the water grave of baptism of God, then add you to the church. But if you're here, you know you're like these Israelites I've been talking about, who forgot what God has already done for them, you have the opportunity to repent before it's everlasting too late. So if anyone needs to respond, may do so. Together we stand and sing a song of encouragement.
This world is not my